Dear ladies and gentlemen, first thank you very much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here in the far north. And I will talk about transport and climate change, and that is important here as well. Because we need a shift in mobility patterns to stop climate change. That is very important. Public transport has to play a key role, and European Parliament calls for a doubling transport use in urban areas by 2030. Where we want to go? The targets of the European Union: 20% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, 20% of energy from renewable resources, and improvement of energy efficiency. Everybody agrees with these goals. With the wording is fantastic, but the act is important. CO2 emissions by the sector. Transport sector is responsible in the European Union for 30% of all the CO2 emissions. And within the transport sector, 72% is done on the road. With these figures, all is clear what we have to do. But that is not the worst case, because you see here the targets of the European Union. There's a red line that should go down. All other sectors are going down. The only sector where we have an increase of CO2 emissions since 1990 is the transport sector, an increase by 22%. And in the industry, for example, we have a reduction by 38%. So the transport sector is nullifying all the efforts we have done with billions of euros of our taxpayers in other sectors. Therefore, without a change of mobility, we can't stop climate change. We have to do that our children and their children will have a perspective to live on this climate, or on this planet. The footprint is clear. If you see the trucks and the freight trains, and of course in the discussions before, it is clear what we have to do. Therefore, I'm very much in favor of the railway connection between Rovaniemi and Kirkenes. Cars per 1,000 inhabitants, you see in the United States, everybody who is allowed and is able to drive a car has a car. And in China it was 40, perhaps today it is 50, but we all know if everybody is driving as much as the Americans do, nobody will drive tomorrow. There is no oil, no steel, nothing. Therefore, also we have to change mobility. The price. What is done with the price? Money makes the world go round. The price on the road is going down, going down, going down. That is the yellow line. And the other one, that is the railways, is going up, up, up. Although the railways are environmentally friendly and the road are climate targeting. What is the reason for that? We have a mandatory system. Each locomotive in the European Union has on each kilometer of track to pay a toll. That is different. You see in Estonia is the highest one. Norway is a good example as the lowest one. Because in Norway people are thinking, we are glad if it is used, the infrastructure we have. In other countries, they made it so expensive that it is not used. We have non-mandatory road charge. It is a free will of the member states if they have a toll. And in Germany it is only on highways and some other roads, and for trucks more than 7.5 tons. That is not fair, that is an unfair competition. And you see Switzerland, 3 times higher than in Germany, because in the European Union is limited, and they have made the modal shift from road to rail in a wonderful way. If you compare, 1% of the rail network in Europe is tolled and 1% of the road network. If the road is environmentally friendly, I wouldn't complain about that. But the opposite is the case. We are doing the wrong thing. Therefore, I say it is not a question of money. It is only a question of political will. Also, here in the northern part of Europe. Taxation of rail services. There are some countries that have no taxation, but 6 countries, and Germany is on top of 19% value-added tax. We make artificially transport on rail very, very much expensive. Electrification of railway lines. Look, the average in Europe is about 50%. Germany has 52%. Finland and Norway are better than Germany, and here also Switzerland nearly 100%. And in 1909 there was a decision in Germany to electrify the railway system. After more than 100 years we have not reached 60%. Tax differences. Also in Germany, in the last 3 years, they reduced the tax, the toll for the trucks by 16% and increased the toll on the rail by 14%. Absolutely crazy, but that is reality. And therefore, with these politicians, we never will fight against climate change and reach our goals in Europe. We have privilege for aviation. They got 30 billion euros every year because they don't pay kerosene tax and on international relations no value-added tax. Railway consumers have to pay that. And we have no emission trading system. It was suspended. And there is not a charge on air corridors. In Siberia it is positive. Everybody is complaining, but we can say, okay, if the Russian can do that, we can do it as well. That would be a fair competition, but it's not possible. And privilege for waterborne transport, no fuel taxation, no charges on the waterways, and maritime transport using heavy oil, that is hazardous waste incendiaries without filters, I always say, and not integration into emission trading system. So the railways are very environmentally friendly, but they are punished and not supported. Both problems and solutions are concerned in urban areas. That is very important. In 2050 the population will be in urban areas 40% of all the CO2 emissions are responsible by transport. And if you look at all the emissions which are harmful to the climate, is 70% of all. And in German cities, you can't imagine that 90% of all the distances made by cars are less than 6 kilometers. Ideal distances to change to tram, to bus, to train, to bicycle, to go on foot. And I heard from Anne Berner that in Finland, 75% of all the distances in Finland is less than 7 or 8 kilometers. I couldn't imagine, because you have long distances here. So we have possibilities to save the climate and to save mobility, because both is necessary. One I have. The use of EU money. Therefore I said that is not a problem of money. The Juncker Fund. More than 300 billion euros for infrastructure. Where is it used? Automotive industry, 31%. And of course motorways, 31%. And railways, 10%. So we are always making the wrong decisions. We have wonderful goals, wonderful things we want to do, but we need not a wording, we need action. And now that our children and their children will have a perspective to live on this climate, or on this planet, thank you very much for the attention, and all the best for the railways here in the northern part of Europe.
Thank you so much, Michael. I wonder, we have heard before about the problems connecting different systems, also when it comes to rail. And you have first-hand experience with how that can turn out, because you worked on the reunification of the transportation systems in East and West Berlin. What was the key lesson you learned?
In East Berlin, we had a different system from West Berlin. In East Berlin, we have a lot of trams, a lot of S-Bahn, that are narrow railways, and not a lot of buses and underground. In the western part, it was a difference. And so there were 9 circles before the wall on the eastern part. To connect the two cities, it would only be to enlarge the tram lines 1 or 2 kilometers to the next western S-Bahn or underground station. In nearly 30 years, we have done it on 3 places.
And why is that?
Yeah, because they are thinking in big things, only in big things, and they made an underground parallel to an existing railway and an existing underground line. 5 kilometers for 30 years was more important than 120 kilometers of tram lines in 10 years.
Oh.
So we can learn from mistakes others have done.
Yeah, and that would mean for this region, if you're going to connect different systems, what should be the key priority?
Yeah. You have here no big mountains for this railway line. You don't need a lot of tunnels, a lot of bridges. It is a wonderful area, and that you can realize in a short time. And then you can think about on other things. But we have the Rail Baltica. We have discussed 10 years if it is a European gauge or the Baltic gauge. Now we have decided it's European gauge, and we have connected then the Baltic states to Europe. And of course, it mustn't stop in the Baltic states. It must come to Finland and, of course, to Norway.
And now you mentioned the fund, the Juncker Fund.
Yeah.
And an Arctic railway is going to cost some money. Do you see a role for the EU there?
Of course. The most part of this railway is in Finland. And of course, we have to make it as a corridor. And there is a co-financing with the Juncker Fund that is possible. And of course, if the two countries come together and wanted to make this project also with third countries, that is possible. And you will get a co-financing of the European Union. But we all know the decisive process is in the governments in Norway and in Finland. But today we listened to the speeches. Both are in favor of that, so I don't see a problem. Let's make it.
Done deal. We have to touch on something. You are actually a person who you've had your feet on the ground, I should say, or maybe that's the wrong expression, when you are bike riding, but you know this area firsthand. And you're going to talk about that tomorrow at the library here in Kirkenes. And for those who can't be present at 1 o'clock, when you discuss the Iron Curtain Trail, what is it and what's the key message?
I come from Berlin. When the wall came down, we had the idea to make a bike path, the 160 kilometers surrounding West Berlin where the wall used to be. At that time, it was not possible. No, we have to erase. But you can't erase history. 10 years later, we have been successful. It is now signposted. It is built in a bicycle-friendly manner and a touristic highlight. But not only Berlin and Germany was divided, it was the continent of Europe. So the European Parliament, with a big majority from all the countries and all the groups, made it, and they are working on the western border of the former Warsaw Pact states, 10,000 kilometers long, runs through 20 countries, and 15 of them are now member states of the European Union. And if I would have told you that 30 years ago, you would have said, this crazy guy, stupid, idiot, continue dreaming. But it's now our reality. Yeah. So it is a right in history, politics, culture and nature. And what is important, you mentioned also tourism. Bicycle tourism is increasing by 20% every year. And bicycle tourism in the European Union at all is 44 billion euros every year. And the cruise ships is 39 billion. But when the cruise ships wanted to have 500 million to enlarge a harbor, not a problem, that is good for jobs and business. But when for cycle tourism you want 1 or 2 million, oh no, that is superficial. Therefore, it is also an economic case.
How many of those kilometers have you actually tested?
I have made myself 8,000 because I'm elected for other reasons, but 8,000 meanwhile I have done last year with Rune, and that was great here from Gänse-Jakobselv to Kirkenes and the northern part. I was 6 weeks, I was here in the northern part of Norway, Finland, Russia and Estonia, and one day and another day, 2 hours, it was raining. In Berlin it was more.
Thank you so much, Michael Cramer.
Thank you.
Thanks.